Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I've had a barrage of social media responses to some of my postings, including videos discussing the problems of Zimbabwe. Specifically, the fact that Zimbabwe is a failed state, and the main reason for it is that for the last 45 years, the country has been stuck with a corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical Zanu PF dictatorship that has managed to stay in power because it rigged the elections. But it must be pointed that Zanu PF would not have lasted the last 25 years at least, was it not for the MDC, Triple C, who sold out. They were meant to implement democratic reforms, as the party name implies. Movement for democratic change. Sorry about the interruption. I'm not sure what actually happened here. We'll continue. Sorry about the interruption. The movement for democratic change. The primary purpose was to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. That was the primary reason the people of Zimbabwe have risked their lives to elect the opposition this last 25 years. So the problem is they failed the nation. They failed to implement even one token reform. This is at the heart of our problem. And in the clip that I showed you earlier on, it is a posting on Chamisa's Chamisa news channel, in which he proclaims, "Fellow citizens, I hear you. Thank you for your insightful feedback, unparalleled interest, and amazing love. Your views are noted and appreciated." I find this an outrage, extremely patronizing, to say the very least. Here is the man who conned the nation to participate in flawed elections in 2023. He had been warned repeatedly that participating in flawed elections will only give Zanu PF legitimacy. He has repeatedly ignored the warning and continued to con people to participate. I have shown on this media, on this platform, David Coulthard's admission in his book that the elections were flawed, so illegal, the only logical thing to do was to withdraw. But in that quotation, he also admits that he and his fellow MDC, CCC leaders have continued to participate out of greed. So, of course, it is an outrage that somebody should pretend that he had not heard what the people have been saying they wanted, when he had been warned repeatedly of the sheer futility of participating in flawed elections. He himself and his colleagues knew the futility of participating in flawed elections. But he soldiered on, continued to participate regardless, out of greed. Pure and simple. Now here's the audacity, the cheek to tell the people, fellow citizens, I hear you. As if all along the last 25 years, he had not heard what the people were saying. And in this particular case, one has got to analyze that statement. Is it an admission of failure? It doesn't admit anything. It doesn't say, I hear you and I admit that I failed you. Much less an admission of his treasonous betrayal, of failing to implement the democratic reforms, even when he had the opportunity to do so, and conning people to participate in flawed elections when he knew the process is flawed. It's neither. It's just mumbo jumbo. I hear you and your views have been noted. Meanwhile, he is preparing to con people to participate in 2028 elections, promising the same idiotic lie that he's going to win these elections, #God is in it. It is, the tragedy for Zimbabwe is that the people of Zimbabwe have failed to see the likes of Nelson Chamisa for who he is. And hence the reason why we are in this place.
Makorokoto Zimbabwe nokuti hakuna munhu anomira kana denga raronga plan. Denga raronga plan, denga harifo iri. Plan yaMwari haifo iri. Ini ndatanga kugadzira cabinet. There is no way we are not going to form a new cabinet. There is no way we are not going to have a celebration. There is no way we are not going to have an inauguration. Let's start preparing for our inauguration. Let's start preparing for our celebration.
The truth of the matter is, Chamisa was lying. He was lying about plugging the vote-rigging loopholes. He knew it because the voters' roll was in shambles and he was told about it and he ignored it. He also knew that Zanu PF was rigging these elections because he failed to even do the most basic things one would expect in an election. Deploy election agencies at polling stations. His fellow CCC leaders admit that Chamisa failed to deploy election agencies at many of the polling stations. What is annoying about that is that he had received funding for it from donors and he pocketed the money instead. So Chamisa's position is not one of somebody who did not hear what the people have been saying or did not know what we were supposed to do this last 25 years. He knew what he was doing. He had been told several times what he must do. But he just didn't care about it. He's been participating in these flawed elections out of greed. And now, even when he's forced to admit something, he will not even admit that he's a liar, but rather come up with some wishy-washy mumbo-jumbo statement that means absolutely nothing. Here is an occasion when Chamisa was taken to task for lying.
Ende patakasangana na Trump akatibvunza naye akomana mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
Serious questions were raised about your behaviour in Washington, D.C. You did see some senior people on Capitol Hill, some Congress people, but you also claimed that you'd seen Donald Trump. You claimed you had a conversation with him in which you said he asked you how much you needed to move the country forward. You told him $15 billion, and he said to you that he would provide the money if you won the election. That was not true, was it?
Sangana na Trump akatibvunza naye akomana.
It was not true that you'd seen Donald Trump and that Donald Trump indicated to you that he would provide, if you won the election, but $15 billion.
All those statements were said by other people, not what I said.
Well, no, because there is a video which shows you at a rally in January back home in Zimbabwe saying that Donald Trump had pretty much promised you $15 billion. To be clear, because some people in Zimbabwe are still confused, you're now telling me you did not meet Donald Trump.
We did not.
Chamisa is a liar. He is corrupt. He is incompetent. That is the truth. After 25 years of MDC CCC on the political stage, they failed to implement even one token reform. And hence the reason why the Zanu PF is able to blatantly rig the elections. What is worse? They have conned the people to participate in flawed elections, knowing fully well that that will give Zanu PF legitimacy. The real surprise here is that it has taken 25 years before the penny finally dropped that MDC CCC leaders are the Zanu PF team B in all but name. Now the real question here is whether the people have the courage to accept that simple historic fact that MDC-CCC leaders are corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless. And whether the people have the courage to do the rational thing, accept that MDC-CCC have sold out and move on. The country is not going to get out of this mess until we elect opposition who are competent to implement the reforms the nation is dying for. The fact that MDC, Chamisa and company failed to implement these reforms does not mean we don't need the reforms. Much less that they are the only ones who could implement the reforms. And therefore then we must give them yet another chance, even after 25 years of doing nothing. We are our own worst enemy in Zimbabwe. As a people, we have been very extremely slow in reading what is on the wall, there for everyone to see. And the writing on the wall has been very clear that MDC-CCC will never bring about the democratic change the nation is dying for. Our refusal to accept that reality is not helping us. Because Chamisa, while he promises that he has heard us, in reality is also preparing to con the people again to participate in 2028 and perpetuate the dictatorship. The nightmare scenario for Zimbabwe is that people should participate in 2028 and perpetuate the Zanu PF dictatorship because they were once again conned by Chamisa and believed these idiotic lies that he would win rigged elections. This is not about Chamisa. This is about the people. Have we learned anything? That is the question that people of Zimbabwe must answer for themselves. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.